Okay, we ready, Meg?
Yes.
This meeting of the Preservation Board is now in order. Welcome, everyone. If you are not a member of the Preservation Board and not a member of its staff, please mute your audio. Thanks very much. Meg will have further instructions in just a few minutes. In order to establish that this meeting is formally in session, I'm going to call a roll and see if we have a quorum. I am present. Commissioner Robinson, are you here? Commissioner Hamilton, are you here? Commissioner Killeen, are you here?
Sorry, present.
I could see you. Commissioner Richardson, are you here?
Present.
Commissioner Allen, are you here? Commissioner Hammaker, are you here?
Present.
Alderman Coder, are you here?
Here.
Have I overlooked any commissioners who are present? Okay, there are 5 commissioners present. That constitutes a quorum. This meeting is now official. Meg, have you got some instructions?
Yes. If any members of the public would like to make a comment on any agenda item, please put your full name, first and last names in the chat, along with the address of the agenda item that you wish to speak on. Comments that are posted only in the chat do not count toward the public record, and they will not be read to the record by staff. You must speak verbally if you'd like your comment to count toward the public record. Additionally, I'd like to note that we've had one withdrawal from tonight's agenda. The applicants for 2200 Indiana have withdrawn. We've also had one deferral. That's the applicants for 4324 and 4328 West Papin have deferred their appeal until November so that they can meet with the community.
Okay. Commissioners, looking at this agenda, does anyone need to recuse themselves from consideration of any of these items? Okay, commissioners, in terms of the order of the agenda, Meg, we've got a couple of requests. Is that right?
Yes. Alderwoman Peel has asked that the 2 Forest Park Southeast items, that would be item D, 4321 Shoto, and item E, the Manchester addresses, be moved to the top of the agenda. And I believe she is here at the meeting. So
item E is not being considered anyway. Is that right?
No, that would be items J and K.
Okay.
And item H.
Wonder what I'm looking at. Got it. Commissioners, do I hear a motion to drop those from consideration? Hearing no motion, they will remain on the agenda.
Sorry, Chairman.
Yes.
A motion to drop items. Which items is it? H, J, and K, is that right?
Is that right, Meg?
Yes.
Can you just confirm that that's Indiana, Papin, and Papin?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, commissioners, all those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? The motion carries. Meg, please read the item letters that remain on the agenda.
Item A, item B, item C, item D, item E, item F, item G, item I, item K, and item L.
So there's 2 Ks, I guess, was the problem, right?
Oh my goodness, I see that. Yes, I apologize.
Okay.
So we took Papin off, but we're still doing 4389 Lindell Boulevard, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, first of all, has anyone read, and this will be our agenda. Commissioners, has anyone read the minutes from the September 26th meeting?
Yes, I have. I move to approve the September 26th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes for September 26, 2022 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain. The minutes for September 26, 2022 are approved. Commissioners will begin the preliminary reviews. Calling agenda item A 2619 McNair.
Share the screen here.
You can move the PowerPoint over to that screen.
Let me see. You see it?
No, you have to go to share screen.
Hi, everyone, Bob Bettis. I'll be giving the presentation here. Give me 1 sec, just getting the PowerPoint pulled up.
Yes.
Okay, this one should be pretty quick to start. Okay. So this. Hear me okay? There's some feedback in the background. Somebody's got their not muted. Okay. Really quick, this item was heard a few months back at the Preservation Board. It's for an addition to this structure over on McNair. See, this is the context. At that time, at the meeting, it was asked to be redesigned slightly to have it come more in compliance and conform to the historic model example. The goal is to narrow the building, have the fenestration, have a better solid void ratio with the brick on the front facade. The applicant has done so. And as you see on this picture here, you can see the original versus the revised. And you can see it really does align better with the building itself. And staff thinks overall it's a better design. So just really quickly here, kind of go through it. Some previous and befores. Previous north elevation, and this is the revised. We think it looks better as well. The fenestration proportions are a lot more appropriate. While we're on this elevation, I just wanted to note staff is slightly concerned with the fireplace bump out that you see. It does slightly project. It's a little bit different than you would see historically. So in terms of the design of the addition, that is really staff's only concern is the fireplace bump out. Overall, though, we think it's a really good design, although it doesn't comply with the placement for additions since it attaches to a semi-public facade. We have had correspondence from Benton Park, and they are in support of the revised design as submitted. So I'm going through some more. So again, staff we're satisfied with the revisions. However, since the placement is prohibited in the guidelines, staff is recommending denial of the preliminary review for the addition. Any questions for me?
So just to clarify, you're denying this because of the fireplace?
No. We're not recommending denial for the fireplace. We're saying we're concerned about that little bump out in the side. It's something you wouldn't probably have seen historically, just given the scale of it, the smaller scale. We prefer to see it moved if possible. However, we're saying denial because of the placement of the addition itself.
Oh, okay, sorry. Got it. Thank you.
So yeah, again, the design is much better. We think it aligns with the streetscape. Again, the placement is not allowed per their code, so we cannot recommend approval given its location. And again, our only design issue with the redesign is just that bump out on the side. First, move to the back, but we understand why. It's the placement of the interior fireplace.
So just so I understand, it's because you can't have addition at a semi-public facade?
Correct.
Got it.
Further questions? Okay, let's hear from the applicant.
Tony?
This is Anthony Duncan.
Okay, Mr. Duncan, what do you want us to do?
Well, we revised a couple weeks ago. We also worked with some people at preservation staff on the committee to come up with this and went back and forth with our client. And I think we have a decent scenario to make this work with the neighborhood. The mass void balance is a little bit different than it was before. It's a more distinct separation, like Mr. Bettis had said. And it also uses a model example.
Questions, commissioners?
Mr. Duncan, is there any way to recess that fireplace into the wall so we don't have it protruding out? towards the alley?
We would look into that. Yes, if I could probably get that done with our client. Yes. So so it's looking more like a coplanar, a smooth wall on the outside, Mr. Colleen?
Well, I'm just asking the question with your plan. You know, I know how when you put a full fireplace inside, it takes up a lot of room.
Yeah,
So,
it's about square footage.
right. So I'm just curious if it's easy enough to make that adjustment. Great. If not, you know, I understand.
I would have to check with my client first, but it's a possibility. That's not a big issue, I don't think.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions for the applicant? Okay. Has anyone signed up to speak on this matter, Meg?
No, we do not.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. Commissioner Killeen, having heard all this, have you got a motion to make?
I move that the Preservation Board override the director's denial and allow this project to be built as designed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Catherine.
Motion seconded. Is there discussion?
So is that with the bump out?
I'm not putting that in there. If one of you guys wants to, I think they've gone a long way to make this a lot closer to our standards over there in Benton Park. But if one of the other commissioners wants to add that to my motion, I would add it, but I'm not going to enforce it at this time.
Any further discussion? Okay, commissioners, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll, and this will be the order that I'm going to call the roll tonight. Alderman Coder, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
The chair abstains on this vote. There are 4 yeses and no nos, 1 abstention, and the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Calling the second agenda item.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay. Jan Cameron from the Cultural Resources Office. This is a proposal to build 4 detached buildings for 2-story dwelling units in an unusual configuration on this piece of vacant ground at the very edge of the McKinley Heights Historic District. Next, Bob, please. And this is the location of the project site. To the right is Highway 55, 44, 55, thereabouts. And it is at, as you can see, at the very edge of the district. Next. And this is an aerial view of it. It's an interesting site because you can see that the grade is quite high. These units will be partially constructed into the existing terrace. Next. And this is just to show you what an unusual site it is. The little blue star is the project site, which is just at the edge of the McKinley Heights Historic District in green. The yellow outline shows Benton Park and the red outline shows Soulard. But then in the middle of it is all the on-ramps of the highways. Next. And this is approaching the site down Geyer Avenue. The site is at the extreme right in the left-hand slide. And the right-hand slide shows what you towards the highway. So it's screened, but it's still not an absolutely prime residential site. Next. This is looking back up Geyer, would be looking west. And this is the little house that's directly adjacent to the site. Now they will not be really close together, but the scale of the proposed project is far greater than this little building. Next. Proceeding down Geyer, again west, this is the south side. While we do go to 2-story buildings here, the scale continues to be relatively small. Next. We're proceeding towards Mississippi here. And next. This is the opposite side of Geyer. We're heading now east along Mississippi. There's a substantial corner building at Mississippi and Guyer, but again, the scale reduces further we go east. Next. This is just opposite the existing site. So there's a lot of vacant land at this point. Next. And we're back again to the project site, looking directly west from the edge of the highway. Next. This is the proposal. There'll be one large unit at the north end, and then three smaller units at the south. And each of them will contain 2 units of 2-story townhouses. I guess you could call them townhouses, but anyway, dwelling units. Next, so there'll be a total of 18 units on the site. This is a comparison of the scale to the little building I showed you earlier with the proposed new construction. Now, they will not be this close in proximity. This was just I asked the architect to do a comparison of scale. So that's the difference. You see that it is bigger. And we've worked with the architect and taken some efforts to try to visually reduce the scale as much as we can. Next. This is actually the street elevation that you would see. So you're actually going to be seeing the side of one of the buildings rather than itself in proximity to the small house. Next. And this is the proposed design. We asked that the upper floor be reduced. So we have a little bit of a roof terrace there to try to minimize the 3.5-story kind of scale. But again, this site is pretty isolated, and you're only going to be able to see it if you are proceeding east and south along Guyer and 18th Street. Next. This is the original proposal that we received on the left, and this is the revised proposal on the right for the 2-story, 2 attached units. And I think you can see that the scale has been much reduced, and we are very pleased and grateful to the architect and the developer for being as understanding about trying to reduce the effect of this fairly large development on a small historic district. Next. And another view on the other side. Now, all of the exposed elevations will be brick. The only time they will be going to siding or another material is in narrow gangways where it really won't be seen. Next. And I don't know if this is really necessary, but I thought I'd throw it in because the bottom unit of each of these buildings will be a 1/2 story underneath in the basement, really. And then there'll be a living area up above, and then there'll be another 2-story unit atop that. Next. And that makes it a little bit clearer for you. We had a bit of trouble understanding where the stairs were running ourselves when we first received it. Next. And again, a comparison of the initial submission at the top and the revised submission at the bottom. And there's the little house on the far right. Next. Okay, so the staff is recommending that the board grant preliminary approval with the usual requirement that the staff review final drawings and exterior materials. Now, I do have a letter from the McKinley Heights Neighborhood Association. Rocco Dana has indicated that they are in support of the project with the condition that they would like to be able to review the color of the brick and that it be a consistent color that exists in the district, which would be something that we would ask for as well. So, any questions?
Yeah, you also had a condition that there something about the screening of the parking area.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I overlooked that entirely. Bob, could we go back to the site plan? Okay. Down at the far bottom right, you'll see 5 parking spaces that are distinct from the main parking area, which will be hidden behind the building. That is directly accessed from Guyer. South 18th Street, I'm sorry. And that needs to be screened with a fence or some kind of opaque landscaping. What we would prefer to see if those 5 spaces could be incorporated into the larger lot behind the building. But if that's not possible, because you can see the site is pretty tight, we would like to be sure that it's sufficiently screened for public view.
Got it. Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, let's have the applicant. Jen, where's your applicant?
Mayo is in the room. Jen.
Yes, I'm here.
There you go. What would you like us to do?
I totally agree with so I've worked with the cultural resources folks to get to a reasonable agreement. So all the recommendations that came with, I'm aligned with.
Okay, questions for the applicant, commissioners? Is there anyone signed up to speak, Jan?
Yeah, we have Joe Van Arsdale is here to speak on the item.
Okay,
Hello, commissioners. Thank you for your time.
hello.
If you would, could you refer back to slide 17? I just want to give folks on the call kind of a rough idea of the size of property we're talking about. So if you see that middle garage there, that's my garage, and my single family home is directly behind it. To my left is a four unit, and then to the left of that is another 4 unit. To my right is a 4 unit, and then to the right of that is two 2 units. So all together in this entire space, going from that garage all the way on the right to that 3-car garage all the way on the left, we got 15 total units occupying that space. So I understand now with this design that there's going to be 20 apartments in this vacant field in which, you know, currently my children and I play in, and 18 additional parking spaces somehow like put into this area. And it also looks like those 18 parking spaces will have to be accessible through the alley that my garage backs up to. So I'm wondering if, you know, commissioners can comment on that, if we think that that's a reasonable room for that amount of development. Thank you.
Bob, we have further comments?
No, sir, that's it.
Commissioners, having heard the presentation, staff recommendation, and citizen input. Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion?
Yes, I would move that we grant preliminary approval for the design with the condition about the screening of the parking and the standard condition of CRO office reviewing final drawings, exterior materials, and colors.
Second.
Is there any discussion, commissioners?
I would want to just quickly respond to Mr. Van Arsdale's question to all of us. We've seen projects like this come before us with this amount of parking or more accessed off alleys. And then the height issue and the bulk of this thing, we've also seen that. It's yeah, and I feel for you having that play space maybe going away, but it's a good thing for the city. The densities is something we could use. But we do. But to answer your question, we do see this kind of thing. Yes, sir.
And if I'm to add as well, so I actually own the lot on the other side of the alley, and that one I'm actually gonna put a community dog park on that side of the alley as well. So, Joe, if that helps at all.
That was an unsolicited but welcome comment. Okay, commissioners, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. I'm going to call the roll in the order indicated. Alderman Carter, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
The chair abstains on this vote, counts 4 yeses and 1 abstention. The motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. Let's do the third agenda item.
Chairman Callow.
Commissioner
Commissioner
Robinson.
Robinson is here.
Welcome. Did you hear that discussion?
I did, and part of the first one.
Aha. Would you like to register a vote for the record on that last item?
Yes.
So is your yes vote yes?
Yes, my yes vote is yes.
Okay, then. Barb, would you make sure that the record shows 5 yeses and 1 abstention, and that Commissioner Robinson is present and heard the discussion? Okay, thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, commissioners, on this one, do we want to just hear from the applicant?
I'm not sure the applicant is making a presentation. They're just here, I think, to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, let's put the applicant up.
I'm happy to give a very brief introduction if you'd like.
I figure you probably know it best, sir.
Yes, so I think we're all familiar with the North Plaza of the Missouri History Museum. This is the face facing Lindell. And it is where it is used presently for a lot of community gathering, particularly more recent times, Twilight Thursday. But basically, it's an area where there are a lot of obstructions. There are steps that go around the fountain. That was, it's a 1970s project addition. There are also 2 ramps that go either side of the main portico. And then there are various planters that are, as you can see, flanking east and west of the fountain. The plan here is simply to clean the site up, make visual obstructions. Obviously, this is fairly clean. Reduce the visual obstructions. We are taking away all ramps, all steps, and even on the side that come up to the rebuilt stairway, those are actually sloped walks. They are not ramps. So it is meant to make this place more inviting and inclusive. The fountain will remain. The cladding on the fountain is presently limestone, but as you could imagine, because of there used to be steps on either side, cladding will have to be patched or replaced. We would propose keeping the same material, although that has not really been at this preliminary stage studied exhaustively. And then in addition, one of the main changes is the stairway, which is not original at present. The idea is to push it out towards the north. If you recall now, when you go up on the stairways and you are actually trying to get into the entrance, there's very little distance in front of the columns presently before you might have to actually step back onto the stairs or steps. And being that the museum is significantly attended now, a lot of large groups, and groups are mainly coming from this side because of the drop-off. It's not a terribly welcoming or even safe situation. So basically the upper landing of the stair is being pushed out, and then the stairs are being reconstructed. And that is more or less the gist of it.
Commissioners, questions?
Could I make a recommendation?
Yes.
We're recommending that preliminary approval be granted, subject to the condition that staff reviews final drawings and exterior materials.
Cool.
Hey, I have one question. So the stairs that you're going to be replacing there, you said they weren't original. So what period of time are they from?
The stairs themselves, I believe, are 1970s change. So the original stairs, if you look at the photo, came directly, if you looked at, I guess, Jan, the very old photos.
Yeah.
I don't know if it zooms in close enough. They literally were in between and up against the columns. If you recall, well, none of us recall, under the original Jefferson Memorial, this was an open portico. So you kind of came up the stairs between the columns, as you can see, and then you came into this covered portico, if you will. Then when the museum went through the expansion phase, that space was enclosed. The addition was made, and then the stairs were pushed out, and the stairs were pushed out also just enough to let those current ramps slide up behind. So the lamps are not original, the plinth is not original, and the steps are not original, although the granite has been utilized, the old granite.
Thank you.
And these ramps presently, while likely of compliance back then, they are no longer in compliance. Too long a stretch without a landing, and just from a user point of view, if any of you have been on there, it's not very welcoming to two users passing by each other, much less with a wheelchair or an elderly person with a walker.
Further questions, commissioners? Hearing none. Commissioner Hamaker from Barcelona, have you got a motion?
Sure. I motion to grant preliminary approval to the project with the condition that the final plans and exterior materials are reviewed and approved by Cultural Resources.
Is there a second, commissioners?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call a roll. Alderman Coder, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
The chair abstains on this vote. Counts 5 yeses and 1 abstention. The motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. Okay, let's hear the next agenda item.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Meg Lusto with the Cultural Resources Office, and the next agenda item is 4321 Shoto. This item may look familiar to some of you, especially some longtime members of the Preservation Board, because it has been heard before about 3.5 years ago. So in 2018, this is in a preservation review district. So in 2018, the applicant applied for preliminary approval for demolition of the church building and adjacent warehouse. But there was no subsequent new construction included in that application. Our office recommended approval, and at the October 22nd, 2018 meeting, the Preservation Board gave preliminary approval for the demolition of the warehouse, but withheld preliminary approval for the demolition of the church. In March of the next year, 2019, the Preservation Board considered a revised application for preliminary approval of the demolition of the church and new construction. That application included detailed elevations and site plan renderings of an L-shaped 4-story brick building situated at the southeast corner of the site. And I should really, there we go. This is the site, exactly. I should point out that it is outside of the National Register, the Forest Park Southeast National Register District. So, pardon me. So in 2019, the Cultural Resources staff recommended approval, and the Preservation Board reversed its previous decision and granted preliminary approval for the demolition of the church and for the proposed new construction. The project did not proceed at that time, in large part due to the global pandemic, and the applicant is now ready to undertake the project again. Our office has received a revised proposal with a design very similar to the original, but by another architectural firm. And as I mentioned, the preliminary approval was granted in 2019. That approval is valid for 2 years, and that's why this project is back before the board. Also of note is that the industrial building at 4321 Shoto on the same parcel, but a different building, was not a contributing resource, and our office has approved that demolition. The proposed new facility would consolidate the operations of Ronald McDonald House of St. Louis on a single site. The facility would provide services for the families of children who are sick and require medical services at the Washington University and St. Louis University hospitals, as well as administrative offices. Also of note, the 2004 environmental impact statement for the reconstructed I-64 identified the church building as being individually eligible for the National Register. The building has been vacant for at least 22 years, during which time there has been no proposal for its reuse. So I'll just go through some pictures now. This is the building in question from the front. This is the church from the side. This is the view looking northeast from the corner of Choteau and Tower Grove. This is the context to the west. And Choteau again looking east, but from the middle of the street. This is Choteau looking west. So what you're looking at on the left is the opposite side of the street. You can see the church on the far right of this slide. And this is a better view of the houses that are on the opposite side of the street. So before I continue with my presentation, I'll just show you the proposed new construction. This is looking northeast. These are the elevations of the east, west, and south. We have some drawings here that show materials, and they are masonry, fiber cement, and cast stone in a variety of colors. This is the view for the interior courtyard, and you'll see when I show you the site plan in a moment what that angle is. This is a map of the site showing the site in yellow, the park across the street, and residential houses across Choteau. And this is the site plan itself. So you can see that the location is on that southeast corner. There are some MSD basins and parking. And the view of that courtyard is of this area. And here's some more context. So we evaluated this application under the preservation review area terms. There is no redevelopment plan in place, so that was not applicable. Regarding architectural quality, this 2004 survey for the reconstruction of I-64 states that the Gothic Revival Church could be individually listed on the National Register, and that the ordinance says that there must be unusual circumstances that justify the building's demolition. In terms of condition, the building is sound. The neighborhood use potential, nearby structures are generally in good condition. And then reuse potential, the building has been vacant for at least 22 years and shows evidence of significant deterioration. There has not been a reuse proposal for the church building. We have not gotten any information as to economic hardship. Regarding the integrity of the existing block face, it is noteworthy that the church building was not included when the National Register District was created, even though it is adjacent and across the street from both contributing buildings and new construction on the south side. The north side of the 4300 block of Choteau, where the new building is proposed, has only a few structures apart from the new building, and those are part of Forest Park Southeast National Register District. In terms of proposed demolitions of buildings with unique or significant character, the church has significant character. However, it does not have a significant relationship to other historic structures. The applicant does own the property, and this proposed building would create a strong terminus to the district's northern boundary and complete an important corner of the Choteau Tower Grove intersection. As for the proposed new construction being architecturally compatible with the existing block face, we write that while unquestionably larger in scale than the historic buildings to its east and south, the design of the proposed building has been thoughtfully considered to diminish the impression of its mass and augment compatibility within the historic district. The two street facades present prominent corner elements, while the center sections, simpler in detailing, are recessed, an effect that is emphasized by different though compatible colors of brick. The long center of the Choteau elevation, and go here, is further defined by vertical recesses running the height of the building, minimizing its horizontality with an impression of narrower attached structures. Without creating a falsely historic appearance, decorative elements reflect those found in the historic buildings of Forest Park Southeast. String courses, intermediate cornices, and brick dentils all recall historic details, as does the fenestration pattern of paired and single double hung windows, their heads ornamented with lintels or flat arches. The corner elements have heightened ornament, displaying labeled window heads and projecting cornices with brackets and panel traces. Compatibility with the district will be further reinforced as the colors of the brick would be selected from properties in the district. So our preliminary findings and conclusions that we find that the Gothic style church has been identified as individually eligible for the National Register and therefore is a high merit building per the ordinance. The church was not included in the expansion of the Forest Park Southeast National Register District, even though it is adjacent to and across the street from the district. The previous project had strong support from the neighborhood association.
Which neighborhood association was that?
I believe that was Park Central.
Okay, proceed.
The Preservation Board previously approved demolition of the industrial facility in order to support construction of the new facility. The Preservation Board previously approved demolition of the church and new construction of a very similar building on the site. There are unusual circumstances per ordinances 64689 and 64832 that justify the demolition. Considered ways to incorporate the church building, but determined that it would be impractical. The location for the applicant's new facility was found to be more appropriate than other sites that were considered. The proposal represents a significant investment in the neighborhood, and the where they reuse proposal would allow families seeking medical services to better support children needing inpatient hospital services. So based on these preliminary findings, the Cultural Resources Office recommends that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval with the stipulation that final drawings, materials, and colors be reviewed and approved by Cultural Resources, and that the applicant obtain a building permit prior to the approval of a demolition permit, which is our recommendation from 2019. And I should note that we had several letters which have all been sent to the Preservation Board. Let's see. In support, we had a letter from Jeffrey Barone and a letter that was regarding the previous project from Guy Slay. That one was in 2019. Then in opposition, we had a letter from Cami Lewis and from Aaron Bish. And we also had a letter from the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood that requests that the Preservation Board withhold review of the following projects, including this one on Shodo, until they are reviewed by Alderwoman Peel's Forest Park Southeast Development Review Committee and go through the appropriate review committee processes, noting that the project did not, none of them have filed an application for development review.
Questions for Meg?
Yes, Meg, so that last point there, is that a regulation in this neighborhood? Do they have to go through a review with the association?
It is not a part of our process. It's not in the ordinance. We always recommend to applicants that they talk to the neighborhood association, and we welcome input from neighborhood associations and members of the community, whether they're part of an association or not.
But it's from that letter, is it clear that they have not spoken to the neighborhood association? Or...
That's my understanding.
Okay, and then my other question is, are we looking at all masonry all the way around on this thing, or I don't see what this material...
And the architect is here and will be able to answer specific questions, but the materials here on the inside, I believe, are Metro Nichiha, or I believe they are also just hardy plank, hardy board, but the architect will be able to answer specific questions about materials.
Thanks, Meg.
So I have a couple questions. So how does this one compare in size to the prior project that we approved?
It is virtually identical in size in terms of footprint and height.
Okay. And then you pointed out the not approving a demolition except unless we have unusual circumstances. But the way I read it was demolition of sound high merit structures shall not be approved by the office, period. Demolition of merit or qualifying structures shall not be approved except in unusual circumstances. So this is high merit, right?
Correct. So we could not approve it at the staff level.
Got it. Okay. And then in your staff report, you did not do the analysis of the form-based code. Why?
We have a part to play in the form-based code, but they have not submitted an application for the form-based code. So once that happens, it goes to the zoning department and we review it for one aspect of form-based code.
But what you have looked at, is it generally compliant with the form-based code?
Yes, it's generally compliant, but I don't want to go on the record as saying it is totally compliant because we haven't conducted a formal analysis. It's quite involved to analyze the building for the form-based code.
Thank you.
Further questions for Meg?
Well, are we premature even looking at this thing then, if you still have to do all that?
No, we handle several projects like this. Form-based code is a whole other animal, and there are routinely variances that have to be applied for, or applicants just get the feedback that there is something that's not quite in compliance and make those changes.
Okay.
Further questions for Meg? Okay, thank you very much. Let's hear from the applicant.
Hi, my name is Dan Harbo. I'm the president of Ronald McDowell House. To to address your third issue, Meg, is Abdul on this phone call? Because we had received 100% support from the neighborhood. We went and did a number of presentations to the neighborhood, and
Mr. Harbaugh, let's start the other way around. What would you like? What would you like us to do?
Well, we'd like for you to approve this presentation as we did in 2019. We had every intention of beginning construction of the facility, but we had to raise the dollars. So once we received approval back in 2019, we launched a capital campaign, which we then put on hold in 2020 because of COVID. We stopped that campaign. We relaunched it last year. We have raised $24 million to date and are prepared to move forward with it and begin construction. And again, it kind of surprises me to hear that because we had received 100% support from Forest Park Southeast, from the neighborhood. We had a series of meetings, and from Washoe Redevelopment Corporation. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Angie, our architect, to go from there.
Hello, can you all hear me?
We can.
Thank you for having us tonight. I will try to not be repetitive. I did write something up and there are a couple things that Meg already said, but I'll do my best. And then open to any questions at the end, if that's okay. So I'm an architect
if the first part is short, yes. Otherwise, we'll start with questions. Your choice.
Short as in less than 5 minutes?
Perfect, go.
Okay, I will not talk too fast, but I do talk fast. So I'm Angie, an architect at Lawrence Group, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Ronald McDonald House. We would hope to construct a new lodge on the corner of 4321 Shoto and Tower Grove. Property specifically was selected due to its location between the two hospital systems that they serve, Cardinal Glennon and Children's. The site is located in a residential neighborhood, which aligns with the mission of Ronald McDonald House to provide the home away from home for families of seriously ill children. It also provides great access to the interstate system for families and to serve the other hospitals with which they work. We're here today to request the approval to demolish the vacant church on the southwest corner of the property and construct the new Ronald McDonald St. Louis City House. The design team considered options to keep the church and found they were unsuccessful. A couple points: the building position on the site supports MSD design requirements and allows for natural drainage to the east end of the site. The form-based code criteria dictates this building hold the property line on the primary streets of Shoto and Tower Grove. Lawrence Group was hired in 2019 to design the new facility. When we came on board, the building position on the site had been determined, and as was the conceptual building floor plan. Both meet the form-based code in Forest Park Southeast neighborhood. One of our first tasks was to study the immediate neighborhood for scale and context and update the building facade to better complement the historic nature of the neighborhood. We approached the design by specifically studying building scale, historic details, and colors. The proposed red and gray brick are pulled directly from the neighborhood, and the red-orange brick color was selected as a complement. We are preparing to walk the block in the next coming days, honestly, if we are approved, with brick samples to make final selections. It is important for this larger structure to respect the scale of the neighboring single-family homes. The proposed brick colors and unique cornice detailing help break up the facade and building scale, as Meg had pointed out previously. We did work closely with Park Central Development, Abdul, as Dan had mentioned, on community engagement. We had at least 2 meetings, if memory serves, one with the neighborhood proper, and then one with the immediate neighbors directly across the street, because to put a 4-story building in front of their house was something we wanted their opinion on. They were pleased with the design. They were complimentary of the historic detailing, and we addressed their questions and we earned their support. We submitted for zoning only review to identify any necessary variances we may need to meet the form-based code, presented this design at the Board of Adjustment in August of 2020, received variances and a conditional use permit, and we have those in place today. As previously stated, the project received preliminary approval by this board in 2019, which has since expired. The project did go on hold in 2020 due to the pandemic, and then it was restarted again last spring. This concludes my presentation, but I do open the room to any questions.
Commissioners, questions for the architect?
Yeah, I guess I'm confused. So if it hasn't been through the form-based code review, what did the Board of Adjustment approve?
So we went through a process. We met with zoning early, and we met through we went through a process called zoning only review. And what they did is basically they took the building elevations and plans, and I'm not going to speak for what Meg's office does with her review, but I know what that group did was looked at things like building height, building setbacks, materials, easements, things like that. And anywhere that we were slightly differing from how the code was explicitly written, we did receive a variance for. And I mean, I have paperwork I can share on that. I don't have it in front of me right now. But that was the process. Now that is only, zoning only doesn't mean we have a permit in hand. It just means that we had a comfort level of understanding if and what variances would be required when we were ready to pull the real permit.
And Mr. Colleen and Mr. Chair, I apologize. I was thinking of a different project. This has gone through form-based code, and our office did play the partial rule that we did, and everything that Ms. Esslinger said is accurate.
That makes more sense. Thanks.
Further questions from commissioners for the architect?
Yes, I do. So are you planning, I was just trying to clarify yeah, if you could answer my masonry question from earlier, what will we see from Tower Grove and Shodo?
So the Tower Grove and Shodo elevation, is your question what materials you'll see from this elevation? Okay, so the top view is if you were driving west on Shodo, the very first thing you would see when you get past the residential neighbors is what's basically a 2-story brick facade right there is what's dominant in that elevation. And then beyond, you'll see the masonry turn the corner from Shodo to the north, and then we transition to a fiber cement panel. If it's hardy board or Nichiha or whatever specific product hasn't been determined yet. But the idea was to, obviously we had to meet form-based code with what materials are allowed. But the idea was to take the south and west dominant facades and really appeal to the historic nature of the neighborhood. And then on the northern facades and in that courtyard, that was a lot lighter in tone, that's more gray. We were trying to be a little bit more modern with our aesthetic for the owner.
So when I see red and orange in these 3 drawings, I'm seeing bricks?
100% brick, yes. 4 stories, masonry detailing, masonry window heads, masonry banding, and then the cornice work up the top with the brackets and such, that's fiber cement.
Okay. This is sort of a crazy question, but if we allow you to take this church down, could there be any plan to save a portion of it and use some of the masonry in the wall of this building as sort of a memorial kind of thing to what was here?
I don't want to say that that's not something that we would consider. To be completely honest, we hadn't talked about that yet. We did look at, there was what looked like stained glass on the church, and we were trying to incorporate that into the building somewhere. It would have been on the inside, like a lit from behind element. But it was found that it wasn't in good enough shape to actually pull out and move. But that was the only element we've really studied for reuse. That's my off the cuff answer.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I have one more question. So the write-up by staff says that construction will start within 12 months. Is that accurate?
We would love it to start within a month or 2, to be completely honest. So yes, it would absolutely start within 12.
Cool.
Further questions from commissioners? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Harbo, anything else? Thank you. Who's here to speak?
First, we have Dan Scott.
Well, before we do, Alderwoman Peel, are you here? Anybody see her?
Yes, I am here. I'd like to speak last, please.
Okay. It's your time schedule that I'm trying to accommodate.
I understand I have to be on for the next one too. So I'll be
good enough. Who's first, Meg?
Dan Scott.
Mr. Scott?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Commission, for hearing me. First thing I'd like to say, I live on the block right across the street, which conveniently no pictures of my house are in any of your display. Second of all, I also own the garage at the end of the block on the same side of the street. I also like to say respectfully, their interaction with the community was very minimal because it was run through the former ward boss, Joe Rohde, who owned this whole block. Let's remember that Joe Rohde formed Park Central with public funds. It is a private developer only group. Guy Slays or any members of that group represent the development group and not the community members. He was in very much control of the neighborhood association and anything political. So I like to say from the beginning, this whole process has been a sham. To be able to tear down a church of historical significance is not only a cheat to our neighborhood, but it's a cheat to St. Louis. I'd like to go over a few things just on the application to let you know how shady it is. Okay. It says right from the beginning that this church building has been vacant for at least 22 years. That is a straight up lie. I was a member at this church. The church moved because this people bought the ground and relocated them to North County. They're up on Riverview. Emmaus Baptist Church. Several people from this neighborhood have had significant burials here, frame funerals. We had weddings here. This was a church building that would be used as a church building till these people wanted to use it as something else. This is all part of Joe Rohde, who created also, the form-based code. That's Joe Rohde, and he made that legislation. So what it is their attempt to just continue to bring that hospital complex further into real estate is convenient for them. For them to say that they care about what the community thinks is a sham. I went to one meeting and there was no comment, like you can't say nothing against this because Joe Rohde might have something happen to you outside. Let me say something else about the application, just the application itself. The first thing is the building was not vacant for 22 years. They were probably bought out when they were bought out. You can check in 17. The furnaces were working, the lights were on. We were praying and blessing and thanking Jesus. Okay, on the application thing where they say under urban design, it says proposed demolition. It says, while the church has significant character, it does not have significant relationship to other historic structures. That is a flat out lie. There is a German turnvine on the very next corner at Boyle and Shoto. This was a German church, built in 1800. The turnvine was also a German turnvine, which was a gymnasium, a bowling alley. It was a German community center. Yeah, come on, look for that in your look for that building. Oh, it's not there, is it? Another thing to be slick with, you don't show any evidence that disputes when you leave stuff out. There's a turnvine right on the very next corner that was German, and it relates to this church too. Okay, let's look at the other fraud in their stuff. They say currently, while it's not on the historical register because the neighborhood association left it out. Joe Rohde owned the neighborhood, cultural people. They purposely left it off the registry when in fact it does qualify to be on the national register. I mean, this church was not in disrepair. It is structurally sound. We were in this church praying. Okay, and okay, I'm gonna go back to just the application. They could incorporate this because anytime you got a kid that's dying or sick, a Shriners is right across the street and Children's is right there. And if there's anything you might want to do is you might want to go in that chapel and pray that your child would live and would overcome this medical thing. And to have that historic structure torn down to show the historic nature of how this country, this neighborhood, and this city would respond in times of crisis. To have that removed, that's wrong because that's what you should be doing. They could reincorporate that and make that their chapel. You know, they just, you know what? They never considered it because they don't care. You know, Joe Rohde, never considered taking an exception from St. Corona's Church to donate some of their property on Boyle to have their historic structure tore down, their church tore down to build a children's hotel. He never did that because, that's his parish, his family church. But he had no.
Mr. Scott.
Am I going too far? Am I being long-winded?
No, sir. I was going to add that I have said my share of unkind things about Alderman Rhodey as well. But today, let us focus on this project. And if in fact we're going to have a discussion about the mission of Ronald McDonald House, I'll have to have Mr. Harbaugh come back up and talk about that too, in fairness.
Well, okay, to be really fair, I'd really just like to stick to just the application.
Thank you, sir.
The fraud in the application is the building wasn't vacant. It was being used. It does have historic significance. It ties in with the rest of the neighborhood. It ties in my house. My house was built at the same time, about the same time. So that's wrong. Hey, they're complying with the form-based code because Joe Rhodey controlled the form-based code. They're not tearing down St. Coronis because they're Joe Rhodey's church. That's his family church. But let's leave him out of it. What I'm saying is you can't really leave him out because Dan Krasnoff was on the preservation board and he used to be on Park Central. When you have integrity, when you're able to tear down churches, and I'm gonna say this so that you guys can really get what I'm saying. For them to say that this building is going to fit in is just a straight lie on its face. I mean, I'm right here in front of it. Let me show you, just standing next to the picture. There is no way in heck that picture is going to replace that and it's going to be somehow the same. And look, they've already demolished the rest of the block. They've got plenty of room to wrap around this church, but you know what? What matters to the city and Joe Rhodey developers is that they make sure they get their medical complex to dominate the skyline. Anyone else who to you? Right here, our house is in good shape. We don't want to be looking at a big old medical complex. They have had expansion without restraint on their medical campus. I have seen them build multi-million-dollar projects and they're not going to stop. But gosh, do you have any kind of integrity to allow them to send a false application through and approve it? The neighborhood association has not approved it. We have not had this on the agenda in any serious regard. That was not manipulated by our alderman. And if you guys fast track it, it won't be nothing I can do, but I'll tell you what, it's corrupt, it's unethical. If I knew some better words, I would say them, but along those lines.
Those are pretty good words.
Okay, well, I'm in the neighborhood. I've been here 25 years, and we endured Joe Rhodey's bully politics and development. They got everything they wanted. They didn't get his family church, and they shouldn't get St. Louis's church. This is our church. This is a landmark. This is a landmark, and this is a historic site, and you will destroy this block by just tearing down the most beautiful sacred thing on the block. On the application, they said that it's another thing was that the most significant thing was the dang park next door. The park next door was a whole block that they demolished. It's gone. How can that be an anchor? No, they did save the Laclede gas station. They preserved it, and a company's in there, and they used it and preserved it. You should make these people, Ronald McDonald, I got nothing to get them. I met Dan in person. Like, they should have to incorporate this church in their plans and make it happen. Okay. And if they don't want to, they should pick another site. Thank you. Thank you.
Meg, who's next?
I'm sorry if I was too.
No, a motion is fine.
Andrew Weil is our next person signed up to speak.
Who is?
Andrew Weil.
Andrew.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am here as a representative of Landmarks Association of St. Louis. I was also involved in the creation of the Forest Park Southeast Historic District expansion that's in play here. First, I'd like to just concur with the high merit assessment of this building. I do believe it's high merit. I do believe it is individually eligible for the National Register. And I also believe, from my recollection, that this property was not excluded from the district based on the recommendations of the people that created the district, but that the State Historic Preservation Office felt that the integrity of the streetscape due to that industrial building, which is now gone, had been degraded. And because of that, they felt that bumping out the district at this corner to take in the building was not appropriate. That was a position that we disagreed with. In fact, because of some of the points that the previous speaker brought up, that it is a German church associated with the residents of the surrounding blocks. And he's very correct in pointing out that there is an extant Turnverein adjacent to this building, as well as a Sängerbund on Schoto, which was a German singing club, both of which are adjacent to this church building. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion as points of information. And then also there was a question about unique components of the architecture of this church, and perhaps if it were to go away, whether those could be incorporated into another design. I'd just like to point out to the commissioners that the brick buttresses on the front of the church on either side of the staircase are a unique bond that I've never seen anywhere else in St. Louis. Yeah, it's difficult to see them, but where the walls, where the buttresses expand on either side of the entrance, there's a very interesting brick bond that, again, I believe is unique in St. Louis. And if some component or reference to the church were to be included in a new development, that I would humbly suggest that might be something worth referencing and including.
Thank you. Meg, who's next?
Can we just get clarification? Is that Landmark speaking in favor of retaining the building, or what was the conclusion of that?
The point there was to just inject some perspective in the conversation with regard to why the building was not included in the Forest Park District in the first place, and also to concur that it indeed does have a very direct relationship to the surrounding district, but that it was excluded because of directives from the State Historic Preservation Office, which was primarily concerned with making sure that the district had very firm boundaries based on integrity of streetscapes, and that this building was considered to be an outlier with regard to the integrity of the streetscapes. But historically, it has strong architectural and cultural and historical associations with the adjacent district. So I'm not endorsing or opposing the proposal. I just want to make sure that that information is being considered by the commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Meg.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Peel.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon, commissioners. I wanted to speak after all the citizens spoke, and I know there's a few other citizens that are going to speak.
Meg, do we have anybody else signed up to speak?
No, the Alderwoman is our last person signed up to speak.
I thought I signed up on the chat. Kim Jane. Did you give me in the chat?
And Abdullah was actually in favor.
Oh, I sent it in the chat.
For some reason that didn't come through.
Oh,
Mr. Chair, would you like to let those other members of the public speak?
Of course. Yes. Abdul, do you want to start?
Yes, I'll be very brief. I just wanted to discuss some of the community outreach that was done. I know we did have a global pandemic on this, but there was quite a bit of community outreach that was done, and we did submit something in writing with not only minutes, but something also for the record as well. May 30th, 2018 was the first discussion that was at the Forest Park Southeast Development Review Committee. That was May 30th. Then the project was also discussed and it began the development review process in August of 2018. Then as well as the project was reviewed again, we initially came with some preliminaries August 28th, but the project on September 25th, 2018 was reviewed at the Forest Park Southeast Development Committee. March of 2019, there was also an update given by Dan on where they were at with the design. So that was in 2019, and that was with some of what the city had said at the time, as well as the Preservation Board. January 16th, 2020, there was a review where the entire block, 4300 block of SHOTA was actually flyered. And there were meetings with the residents directly impacted where some review was actually done by several residents, long-term residents, even with a couple being architects that were on the street on January 20th. And some of the design that you saw, some of the changes came as a result of actually that community input that occurred. Once this project began to go after 2020, what we do show initially, there was within the 3-year period, several community outreach pieces too. At that time, the official development committee and the neighborhood level as well on that block. And in September of 2022, a letter was actually also sent by Dan Harbaugh from the Ronald McDonald House to the neighborhood as well, to several of the residents, but then also on September the 12th, it was also received by, in a tweet by Michael Browning. I guess he's the vice president of the Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association that's currently there. This was in 2022. It said, I got this letter today. This is fantastic for a developer, for development to notify neighbors, give a timeline, and provide contact info prior to the project. I'm really excited for Ronald McDonald House to call Forest Park Southeast home. Also on March 2019, in those minutes, and then also subsequently, if you go and check those minutes that were submitted, at the time, the current president of Forest Park Southeast Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association, Dan Dolan, was present at those meetings as well. So there's been tremendous community output that has been done throughout the time. So I did want to show, and that is something that was submitted, should have been submitted for the record, just to talk about what has been done over this, I guess, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, almost a 4-year period at this point. So that was all I had for the record.
Thank you, sir. Meg, who's next?
Next is Cami Lewis.
Hello, and thank you for your time. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I disapprove of the demolition of the church at 4321 Shoto. I am an architect and live in the neighborhood, and this property is on my regular dog walk route. So I've walked by it multiple times a day for several years. And I do always admire the unique brick bond of the buttresses that Mr. Weil mentioned. While Ronald McDonald House was shepherded by the previous alderman and Park Central Development with the community meetings, I would agree with Mr. Scott's opinion of how those went. I would have spoken at the March 2019 Preservation Board meeting when demolition was originally approved, but I didn't know that they were appealing. We need to strengthen legislation regarding historic buildings in the city because it's too easy to get approval to demolish structurally intact buildings, even in a preservation review area. We can't depend on people to be able to check Preservation Board agendas every month. Although not in the official National Historic District, this church the style and age are aligned with the contributing properties of the district. Not only is it older than most of the properties in the district, but it's also older than all 4 institutional contributing properties, the 3 churches and Masonic Temple. It was most likely not included because we've already allowed the integrity of the block to deteriorate on that side of the street from demolition, be it by neglect or building a new highway. I also disagree that it does not have a relationship to other historic structures. Most of them were demolished with the highway, and Dan Scott did mention the turn German building at the corner. I defer to his opinion, his knowledge of the neighborhood, as he's lived here a lot longer than I have. To that point, I disagree with the proposed construction, that the proposed construction would equal or exceed the contribution and integrity of the existing streetscape. The existing church is across the street from a park, so the open space and the church does not seem out of place. However, with the new building, the main entrance of the new building plaza is towards the parking lot at the northeast, and it seems to turn its back on the street and park. And I think the faux historic style at the red brick portions is inappropriate in this historic context, as new construction should be set apart from historic construction. And while the agenda says that the church has not been used for 22 years, I also know that it was leased and used by a congregation up until this building was sold. So I can Dan Scott was a member, so he knows better than I do. And based on the site and the surface parking lot and how much real estate that takes up, I am skeptical that it was impossible and impractical to incorporate the church into the plan, especially since Lawrence Group has done such great work in adaptive reuse. I know it might seem like it's too late. I know how much work and time goes into preparing architectural plans, and that demolition has already begun on the industrial building, but it's not too late until the church is gone. Until then, the plans are just on paper. Thank you.
Meg, who's next?
Alderwoman Peel. Wait, we have one more speaker?
Sarah.
Sarah, who has not given her last name.
Oh, Hogan, sorry.
Sarah Hogan.
Kogan.
Kogan.
Yeah, Kogan. So I hadn't planned on speaking, and I apologize for not signing up, but I did want to weigh in, and I know there's been a lot of disagreements about how engagement happens within Forest Park Southeast over the years, and some disagreements surrounding that. However, I have been attending the community engagement meetings on this project since 2018. I will echo Abdul that they were fairly extensive, and the Ronald McDonald House has been very responsive to the feedback that was given by the neighbors in terms of making revisions, and like the original design was stepped back quite a ways, and the neighborhood wanted more of a street face that kind of came up to the road. They made all of those revisions. They have worked extensively over the years, and so I think basically what I'm saying is I really like that church, but at the same time, I feel like Ronald McDonald has gone through what we typically ask of a developer building a project, and was able to garner support of the neighborhood throughout the years. I think it would be unfair to them to ask them to redo things at this point. Thank you.
Megan.
I believe Alderwoman Peel is our last speaker on this matter.
Sweet team.
Yes. All right, and Kim Jane, I guess, dropped out as a speaker as a citizen. Yes, I wanted to speak on in terms of this project. The first thing is, this is a high merit building, and it is something in which we really need to look at the history of buildings, and that because it's a high merit building, I look at this as something that we can do in adaptive reuse. In regard to being vacant 22 years, that is incorrect. I actually live a block and a half away from this, a block actually away from this particular church. And I had seen people going in and out of that church until it was sold, almost maybe a few months before it was sold. So that church has not been vacant for 22 years. I think that a reasoning of impractical is not really a good reason to be taking down a high merit facility or building. It is something, you know, it's something that can stay up and have something, like I said, adaptive reuse. So impractical, it's impractical to whom versus having history remain. And so one of the things I would request is that there is more community input regarding this historical building, because I've been told by citizens that there hasn't been as much review from the citizens. And again, I'll just go back to, it should be on the National Register. It's a high merit building, and it should be reviewed in terms of that. Thank you very much.
Meg, is there anyone else?
I also wanted to, the other thing I wanted to add is that regarding the Ronald McDonald House, I was told a few months ago, actually, from the Lawrence Group, that they wanted to speak with myself and the residents regarding some changes that were made, and they had not gotten back to me regarding that. So I was surprised that this building was put onto the Preservation Commission's agenda this month without having that. Thank you.
Meg, is there anything else?
No, we have no one else signed up to speak.
Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
I would just like to reiterate that the recommendation of the Cultural Resources Office in 2019 was for approval, and the vote of the Preservation Board in 2019 was for approval of a very similar project.
Too much corruption. Too many lies.
Commissioner Robinson, are you here? Yes, you are. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I am. And I not sure about my motion at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Commissioner Richardson.
I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval for the demolition of the church with the stipulation that final drawings, exterior materials, and colors be reviewed and approved by the CRO office, and that a building permit be paid for and picked up for construction of the new building before any demolition permit be issued and before any demolition be commenced, and construction start within 12 months from this approval.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Can I ask who the second was?
Look like Alderman Coder.
I have something to say about this. This is Mike Killeen. I think it's irresponsible for us to let this go through so quickly when the aldermen and the neighbors have clearly stated that they haven't had enough look at this thing. It's tearing down a cultural resource in that neighborhood. We've had some, I think, some spirited testimony, some convincing testimony about maybe seeing if that church could be incorporated. I know that we approved this a couple of years ago, but here it is back again. Got some more people with opinions on this. And I think we need to give that time for that process to play out.
Further comments?
I second what Commissioner Killeen said.
Okay, I would note then that unless the person who made that motion withdraws it and the second agrees, that the motion on the floor has been made and has been seconded, and to defer consideration at this point, you would have to vote no on the motion. Is that clear?
Please vote no for this corrupt.
Okay, commissioners. Hearing no more discussion, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. Commissioner, Alderman Coder, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
No.
And Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
No.
The chair abstains on this vote. There are 3 yeses and 2 nos. The motion carries.
Why does the chair need to abstain on this, Mr. Chairman?
Because the chair, except in the event of ties, usually does not vote.
Yeah, but we need you to vote. We need you to stop. At least give us some time.
Noted. Commissioners, this motion carries.
What a prick.
Next agenda item.
Give me just 1 second, board members. Okay. The next agenda item is a proposal for the demolition of 6 buildings at 4534, 4538, 4540, 4544, 4552, and 4556 Manchester. Here we go. Many of you are familiar with the site. It's on a very prominent location along Manchester on the eastern end, close to Kings Highway. This is the precise location. The buildings are noted in purple here. And I will also point out that the proposal, although not subject to preservation board review, includes these 2 lots back here on Swan. So the proposal is to demolish these 6 buildings that are in the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood, but outside of the Forest Park Southeast National Register District, but they are in a preservation review district. Descriptions of the houses are in the agenda, so I won't go into too much detail, but suffice it to say that these are buildings with architectural detail and with architectural significance. However, they have suffered neglect, and as you can see, especially from the rear, they are not in great condition. In terms of history, in 2021, the applicant filed for a preliminary review to demolish the buildings. That application did not include plans for subsequent new construction, so our office denied the application, and the applicant chose not to appeal to the Preservation Board. Since then, the applicant has worked with architects and with our office, and the current proposal includes plans for the construction of a 4-story mixed-use building sorry, here we go. 4-story mixed-use building with 71 residential units, 2 to 4 retail spaces, and 50 parking spaces. And I'll just give you the brief overview of the proposal. This is looking south from Manchester. Here are some of the elevations. Rear elevation. This is the site plan. So here's the building in question. It would cover this interior parking, and then again, there's additional parking over here. I will note that upon our suggestion, the architects worked to move the line of the parking wall to be in line with the building's existing residences that are along Swan. You can get an idea of the overall layout, the recessed portion of the 2nd floor with an amenity space. We have information on materials, fiber cement board, brick veneer. Here's another view from Swan. Here's an evening view. And we'll get to some context in a moment. So there isn't a redevelopment plan in this location, so that was not applicable. Hold on just one moment. Architectural quality, all 6 buildings are considered merit structures under the ordinance. In scale and architectural detailing and dates of construction, the buildings are similar to other residential buildings within the National Register District and are sited adjacent to its western boundary. As far as the condition of the buildings, we haven't gotten any structural report on the building's conditions. We will note that at 4540, 4544, and 4546, portions of the rear walls have failed. 4556 has also had a small loss of brick face at the eastern parapet. Masonry failures are due to lack of maintenance and do not appear to be severe enough to compromise the structural integrity of the building, so we consider them sound under Ordinance 64689. In terms of neighborhood effect and reuse potential, the area is located with, site is located in an area with a strong real estate market. And we have not gotten information to counter the viability of the buildings for reuse. We also have not gotten evidence of economic hardship. As far as the integrity of this existing block face, while there have been 2 or 3 previous losses on this block, the existing buildings continue the street wall and are consistent in scale with the adjacent buildings. As noted, the buildings are sited at the major western entrance to the Grove and the Forest Park southeastern neighborhood. The new construction, proposed subsequent construction would equal or exceed the contribution of the structures. We believe it complies. The proposal is to construct a 4-story 71-unit apartment building with interior and surface parking, continuing the pattern recently begun in the Grove of large multi-story apartment buildings along Manchester, and be similar in scale, siding, and exterior materials. However, the architects have worked with the cultural resources staff to refine the original submission and avoid conditions that appear less than satisfactory in some of these earlier buildings. Namely, that they have provided a cohesive exterior design, a unified color palette, a pedestrian scaled first floor, and a clearly defined building entry. Our staff report goes into more details about the series of glazed storefronts, parking, and other details. Proposed construction would be architecturally compatible with the existing block face. That block, the 4500 block, comprises a mix of small scale residential, commercial, and warehouse buildings. We note that it is less intact than many blocks in Forest Park Southeast and has not yet been included in the boundaries of the National Register District. There has been substantial demolition on the north side, and with the exception of 3 historic buildings at the northwest corner of Manchester and Taylor within the district, there's really not much left on this block. And I'll show you some of the context here. So this is the opposite side of Manchester from the proposed site. This is just a little bit east on Manchester, some of the remaining original buildings on the site. This is looking west down Manchester. Across the street, here are some remaining buildings, historic buildings. On the other side of Manchester, we have a non-original building. And on the same side of Manchester, further east, we have some warehouse buildings, and there is also an automobile service station. Further down on Manchester, there's some additional large-scale apartment buildings. So the construction would commence within 12 months, and brings us to our conclusions that these buildings are located in a preservation review district. They are considered merit. They are sound under the definition. Demolition would result in the loss of most of the historic fabric on the remaining block. And the proposed construction would be a 4-story apartment building with the interior parking, while incompatible in scale, massing, and materials with the current buildings on the block, would continue the pattern of large-scale residential infill along Manchester Avenue. The architects have worked with the Cultural Resources Office to produce a cohesive and unified design that employs various elements to both reduce the perceived scale of the building and render it more compatible with the historic fabric of the neighborhood. So based on that, we recommend that the board grant preliminary approval of the demolition and new construction with the stipulation that final drawings, exterior materials, and colors be reviewed and approved by the Cultural Resources Office.
Questions for Meg?
I have one. Who is Groveland LLC?
I believe the principal of that company is here on the here in the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Hearing none, let's hear from the applicant.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, who are you?
Hi, Austin Barzanti. I'm with Grove Properties. Thank you, commissioners, for hearing our project today, and thank you, Meg, for that detailed synopsis. My company, we've developed, renovated and developed over 50 buildings in the Grove in the last 15 years, many of them utilizing historic tax credits. And as much as I do not like to tear down buildings, in fact, I've never torn one down before in my life, unfortunately, restoring these buildings is economically unfeasible. If these buildings were on a residential street within the historic district, I could make them work. But unfortunately, because they are on Manchester, in a commercial district, the economics just don't make sense. Also, my My consultants tell me that the likelihood of getting these nominated to the register is slim to none as well. I'm looking forward to seeing this project happen. It's going to add much needed density to this block of Manchester on the west. It's going to help activate the western side of the Grove. I'm going to let my architects speak more about the design, but also I would like to include that I feel that I do have neighborhood support for this project. It's called the Form-Based Code. The Form-Based Code, as a resident and business owner, I sat in meetings with the neighborhood for 2 years to get the Form-Based Code developed. This project meets the Form-Based Code 100%. I'm also not asking for any subsidies or variances on the project. I'd be happy to answer more questions after my architects present.
Okay. I'm Jeff McGee at Design Alliance Architects. Meg, could you go to one of the renderings, please? Thank you. Thank you for presenting our project today. We've been working with Cultural Resources and St. Louis City Zoning Department to get this building to a point where they are also comfortable with the design. We've put a lot of thought into this and gone back and forth with them so that we aren't just trying to present something that no one's seen before, but it's been worked through a couple times. We've seen a couple iterations of this. We have here a podium building along Manchester that faces the main street that also has a amenity deck that also communicates directly with the life of the street as well. That connection is very, very intentional to welcome people into the Grove and to be able to see new life in something that's vibrant in this neighborhood. I know that I myself used to live in this neighborhood and would love to see this corner developed and see something happening there that also falls in line with the nature of Manchester. Right now, what's there does not fit with the Form-Based Code, like Austin mentioned. We looked into it and it's just economically, you know, if it doesn't work, you know, we tried our best, but we would like to present a building that has the commercial space on the bottom for walkability of the neighborhood, the use of coordinating cool color temperatures, exterior finished materials that draw down into the podium building to connect the different levels of the building so it doesn't just look like two buildings stacked on top of each other, which was a comment that we worked through with the Cultural Resources Department. We have brick as well as fiber cement or Nichiha and metal, sheet metal along the face that integrates well with the storefront. We also incorporated a cap, a parapet cap up at the top to delineate the top of the building, which we would like to, we don't have this in the rendering, but would like to have some intricate lighting in there as well to really highlight this at night to make it look really, really sharp since there's a lot of nightlife in the neighborhood. So we also have a canopy that you can see up there that integrates with the pergola up above at the amenity deck. There's also on-site parking that is tucked underneath the backside of the building. We are also in the process of starting to nose into the zoning only permit with the zoning department as well.
Questions for the architect? Okay. Meg, is somebody here to speak?
Yes. At this point, we only have one person set up to speak, and that is Cami Lewis.
And Alderwoman Peel.
I believe Alderwoman Peel has had to leave the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you again for your time. It's my understanding that the developer has been working with Park Central Development, which is not the neighborhood. And hasn't been any public neighborhood engagement about this large scale project on our main commercial street. It would be great to be able to get feedback from the immediate neighbors, especially regarding the parking lot location. I believe that the Preservation Board agenda is the first time anything has been shared publicly about this project. I know developers are not legally required to work with the neighborhood, but there has been such major changes made to the neighborhood in recent years, all of which have been developer-led with little community input and oversight. And these properties have been held vacant for several years, so I think taking a month or two to get neighborhood feedback shouldn't be an overwhelming burden. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Meg, anything to add?
We have, yes, before we go on, we do have some additional speakers, but I failed to mention that we did receive a number of letters of support and opposition. In support, we got letters from Phil Hulse, Sean Spencer, Kelly Spencer, Kelly Kenter, Betty Shaw, and Sean Baltzel, all of which were passed along to the Preservation Board. And in opposition, David Ackerman, Cami Lewis, Aaron Bish, who wanted a stipulation for neighborhood support, and Dan Doling, president of the Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association, who echoed the same concern that he did with Shoto, asking that it go through the Alderwoman's Forest Park Southeast Development Review Committee. Our next,
I noticed Alderwoman Peel on this call. Did you say she had left?
Another person who's in the call said that she had left, but she is here. So yes, she's one of several people who wish to speak on this issue.
Yes, if it's possible, I have to go. So speak first, that would be wonderful.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Commissioner, and members of the Commission. I'd like to speak on this particular project. First, one question I had was, did it meet the form-based code? It sounded like it didn't meet the form-based code. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that they have not formally submitted for a form-based code review. Is that accurate, Mr. McGee?
That is correct. We have not submitted for the zoning only permit yet, but we have had intense conversation back and forth with the zoning department. Our intent was to submit all at once, but we may be deviating from that path and doing zoning only first.
Okay, thank you. So what I'd like to just present is that I believe it should go through that form-based code. And the second is there is a Forest Park Southeast Development Review Committee, and we have spoken with the developer regarding having the development go through the committee and have it reviewed. There are architects and other professionals on that committee to look at it closer. There have been many residents who have asked about those particular projects or those particular buildings on Manchester and what's happening with it. And citizens have informed me that they wanted to have some input. We have spoken to the developer regarding the dates in which he can present in front of the Development Review Committee and then the neighborhood. And that just has not happened over the past few months. And we have been in communication again, I'd say in the last 2 months, last month, regarding trying to get the site design plans. And the first step, anybody has seen it, is through this meeting here. And so I would like to have the decision for this particular property postponed until the neighborhood can see this project. I know that people have questions on this design, and that it would take a lot more time than just this preservation meeting and hearing. So thank you. I will have to get going because I have another meeting to go to.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
As developer, may I respond?
No.
Chairman, can I ask a question of the Alderwoman?
She's gone.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Meg?
Yes, our next speaker is Zen Harbison.
Hi, thank you. I'm a resident on Shoto, across from Shoto Park. I just want to second Alderwoman Tina Hill's comment that neighborhood association has not had a lot of time to review this. I am now at this meeting. I'm a neighborhood person, and this is the first time I've seen these drawings or know anything about this. Other than that, the buildings were slated to demo. I have one question, quick. How is Tower Grove Properties related to this project? That wasn't specified.
No one is obliged to answer that question, but I note it for the record.
I believe the question may have been pertaining to Groveland. That was one of the questions from the board members, and Mr. Berzantny is with Groveland.
Okay. Well, regardless, I am hoping that you put in consideration for Alderwoman Peel's comment and that the neighborhood gets to review, because I and many others that I know have commentary. And going back to slide number 83, I believe it was, or 85, it looks like 85. I just want to comment that this should not be in consideration or in a slide in this, because this was not approved by all the people in the neighborhood when it was built.
If I can comment on that, Mr. Chair, that did not involve a preservation review. So our office had no involvement in the design of this building.
I'm just commenting that it's kind of biased since it's in the slide presentation.
Okay, we're not going to go back and forth.
That's all my commentary. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Meg, who's next?
Abdullah.
I have no comment.
Meg, next.
Okay, Aaron Vish.
Yes, thank you. I just second the alderperson's request for community review, neighborhood review if possible, and also second Zane's comments about using relatively recently built architecture and designs as design context. Just doesn't seem in spirit with my interpretation of the form-based code. Thank you.
Meg, next.
Those are all the people that we have signed up to speak.
Okay. Commissioners, that concludes testimony on this matter. A motion is now in order.
Chairman, could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So, we've heard from a number of neighborhood folks, I think unlike the previous project where there had been extensive neighborhood deliberation, and I apologize if I missed this, but could the developer sort of walk us through what steps there have been to engage the neighborhood? What I'm hearing from the neighborhood sounded more like issues with design than saving these houses, unless I misheard. But could we just get a little bit of some context on that? What engagement has been done?
Yes.
I'm happy to answer. Yeah, hi, Austin Berzantny, Grove Properties. So first of all, this is on the commercial strip. There are only 5 residential properties behind where this development is planned. We control all of them. As far as neighborhood, I've gotten support from many businesses on Manchester that want to see increased densities in the neighborhood. And as far as engaging with the newly formed development committee, as they mentioned, I reached out to them 2 months ago and they would not put me on the agenda.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up? Why wouldn't they put you on the agenda?
I believe it was because we did not, their lengthy application with full design details, we do not submit that before any agenda. I mentioned to them that we would be happy to share with them the building design and everything at the meeting, but it is a policy of Grove Properties that we do not submit that before a neighborhood meeting.
I have a follow-up question too. Was there any engagement with the folks on Swan where you're installing a parking lot on the surface?
We have a couple of residents that we rent to that are in support of it. So yes, there has been.
But just your tenants?
That's
okay.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
I can't see who's speaking.
It's Mike Killeen.
Commissioner Killeen, your motion.
I move the Preservation Board defer action on this to allow the applicant to work with the neighborhood and to get their input on his design.
Is there a second?
I'll second it with the condition that it also just be to defer this for 1 month so that it doesn't drag on here.
Thank you. That was going to be my comment.
A motion to postpone to a definite time is amendable. So is that okay with you, Commissioner Killeen?
I go 2 months to give everybody time to get together. Holidays are coming up.
Is that okay with you, Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to postpone consideration of this item for 2 meetings. And this is a discussable motion. Is there any discussion?
Can we just, I mean, I guess, can we make it up to 2 meetings? I mean, if all the parties are ready next month, there's no reason to delay it 2.
Certainly.
Did you say yes, Commissioner Killeen?
I said certainly, yes, sir.
Commissioner Richardson, do you agree?
Certainly, yes.
Okay, the motion on the floor is amended to
I guess
up to 2 months.
I have a question about the motion. So if the developer here continued to reach out to this committee that the Alderwoman has over the next 2 months and was unsuccessful, he would then be able to come back to us and say, I tried.
He can come back in 2 months and he can tell us what happened, and so can the neighborhood.
Yep.
And if it comes back in 2 months, we could extend it further if there, but again, my point is it can't drag on forever. And especially in the environment today with interest rates going up and things like that, it's not fair to a developer.
No, I'd add it's not fair. And frankly, 2 months is a reasonable amount of time. I'd encourage the developer, you got to share some plans with the neighborhood. I mean, whether it's your company policy or not, you're coming to the city asking for something at this point. So I suggest you at least provide them with some of the documentation they're asking for. That doesn't seem unreasonable. And if after 2 months you can't evidence community support or that they're unwilling to meet with you, we'll deal with it then.
Commissioners, there's a motion on the floor that's been made, amended twice, and seconded an equal number of times. This needs a majority vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair abstains from this motion. The ayes have it. Okay, we've been at this for a bit. This is the time for what Director Listow calls the bathroom break. So we're going to take 5 minutes. And you can turn the recording off or leave it on. It's up to you.
Thank you.
Leave it on.
Bob, we about ready?
Yes, sir. I can go anytime.
Let's do an informal roll call of commissioners. Alderman Coder, you back?
Chairman, I'm back. I just texted you. I'm going to have to bail at 6:20 for this vigil that's going on. So I apologize if that causes any inconvenience on the quorum.
Please take along our sympathy and concern.
Will do.
Thank you. Commissioner Hammack, are you back?
I am, yes.
Commissioner Richardson, you back?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, you back?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Robinson, you still here?
Yes.
Aha. Okay, then. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We're all suitably refreshed or relieved. The meeting changes slightly now in that we hear appeals of denials. The change in our procedure will be that those who testify will be asked to affirm or swear that they're telling the truth. And we will be building a record of the appeal. So we'll ask both staff and applicants to introduce into the record any evidence that they wish to have there. Let's hear the first appeal. Bob?
Okay. First up, it's 1800 South 8th Street. I am Bob Bettis with staff, and I will tell the truth. I need to enter in the enabling ordinance 64689 as amended by 64925, and the Soulard ordinance 57078 as amended by 62382, my PowerPoint, my presentation, and the agenda. So this is the property in question. What we're going to focus on is the retaining wall along the street here, along the cross street. It was installed without a permit. It was caught by a building inspector and it was turned over to us to pursue for the historic code. Just give you some real quick rundown here. Here's some context. We're just to the south of the market. There's some street level context. The building in question is kind of up here on the left-hand side. There's a close-up shot showing the wall in construction. It's a red Versalock. And here's some more context. I want to note that at right here, I'm sorry, on the left-hand side of my screen, is the wall in question. It does kind of also front onto South 8th Street. And here again, context looking south. So here is also a before and after shot of the work in question. And then we have some basic details supplied by the applicant showing the construction cross section and his basic floor plan, or I'm sorry, site plan. What it comes down to is this: in Soulard, a retaining wall is anything that holds back dirt. There is no definition of height. It just has to hold back dirt to be a retaining wall. Retaining walls must be based on a historic model example and cannot be constructed out of Versalock material. So the item is not compliant because, again, it's not based on a model example and not Versalock. We have heard from the SRG. They are not in support of a variance for this project. So given the fact that the wall is not compliant, staff is recommending that the board uphold the director's denial of the application.
Questions for Bob? Okay, is the appellant present?
Sergio in the room? We cannot see him in there. He was notified. We don't see if Sergio is in the room. Sergio, are you there? It's not looking like he is in attendance, but he was notified.
Mr.
Chairman, I have a motion.
Is there anyone signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, your motion, Commissioner Killeen?
Oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I didn't know we didn't have anybody speak. So I move the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial as this wall was built without a permit and does not meet the local historic standards.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, commissioners, there's a motion before us. made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll. Alderman Cotter, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this motion. Counts 5 yeses, 1 abstention. The motion carries and the appeal is denied. Second appeal.
Okay, I'm Bob Bettis with staff. I will tell the truth. I need to enter in the ordinances 64689, which is our enabling ordinance, and as amended by 64925, and the Central West End ordinances 56768, as amended by 69423, my PowerPoint, the agenda, and my presentation. Okay, so what we have in this instance is the replacement of a clay tile roof at 325 North Newstead Avenue in the Central West End. Some quick context for you. The building in question was just to the north of the new cathedral. This is the building in question. Here's the site map. And here is kind of an overall shot, giving you a sense of what the roof looks like. Here is some street level context. Across the street, you have mostly single family homes. And then to the west, you have some more context with houses and then the church as well. Sorry. This is the building as it is currently. When there's summertime, it's hard to see with the trees, but as you see, come wintertime, there's a clear line of sight to the building in question. So some background, we received a complaint that work had begun at the building to remove the clay tile roof. I went out, met with the contractor and some building representatives, explained the situation, and I had to place a stop work order on it. At that time, they were removing the clay tile and they had intended on putting up a gray architectural Grand Manor shingle, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. So at that time, they stopped. I had them get in touch with Central West End and also, kind of work up some ideas for some alternatives. So here's, at that time, the only thing that was removed was kind of this northwest part of the roof. Everything else is still intact. You can see what was left on site. This is kind of a close-up shot of one of the tiles that was removed. And on the right is the proposed Grand Manor shingle. A lot of times in certain applications, depending on the historic district, this sort of shingle is somewhat appropriate. But again, you're looking at a tile roof versus a slate roof that they're proposing to replace the shingle with. Let me give you some context. The roof itself is in pretty rough shape. I'm going to show you some photographs right now of the roof as supplied by the applicant. It's kind of definitely a mix of colors of green. The front slope seems to be a different color. The back slope seems to be more uniform. Here's some interior damage. There is some water infiltration obviously in the building. And so I'll have the applicant speak about the other stuff. So in terms of the standards, what it says that if you have the existing historic material, it should be repaired. And if you can't repair it, it needs to be replaced in kind. So obviously what we have with the picture on the screen, you have a tile roof and they're proposing to place essentially with a slate-like material. And the appearance is completely different. It would change the character of the building completely and does not meet the code in any way. So recommend that you uphold the denial. I know the neighborhood is here. Mr. Dwyer will be here to speak on the item, but I do believe they are not in support of a variance. Any questions for me?
Questions for Bob? Thank you, Bob. Is the appellant present?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, we have several people here from it is applied.
I don't know who's supposed to speak first. I'm the contractor. I don't know if you want Bob to speak first or no, I can't hear.
It's your appeal. You can decide that the order in which you want to speak, but I would ask you to identify yourself and to affirm that your testimony is going to be the truth.
Yes, sir. I apologize. I'm Christian Harbart. I am with Shelby Roofing. We are the contractor of the building. So this is our job.
Great. Is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you want us to do?
Okay, so this all started in the probably late 2020, pretty much in the heart of COVID. They called. They were having multiple roof leaks, and we were trying to figure out, you know, could this roof be repaired? Could we, you know, what were the options? So looked into a bunch of stuff. Looked at the tile. There used to be a place where we could get some salvage tile, but it was very limited. That man passed away, so there's no tile to replace tile with, and it's pretty evident in the pictures that there's very few of the tile that are actually the same. So it's just kind of an effort to put it together and make it work. Then we started researching actually replacing with tile or composite tile. There is not really a composite tile. There's composite shake and composite slate. So that really wasn't an option, and it was way up in price as well. And then we started looking into actual tile, which was, you know, back around that time, pretty much everything was shut down. Like we couldn't even get nails for some time. So we just researched and tried to find something we could actually replace this roof with that was you know, above the standard of shingle, which a Grand Manor shingle, and in a lot of instances is it's used as a substitute for tile, while it's not clay or the exact same material. It is designer. It's made to look like a tile. It has similar dimensions. It lasts forever. It's very high end. So that was our. We did look around the neighborhood, several buildings. You know, pretty much any building within visual view, besides the neighborhood, had pre-tap shingles and regular architect shingles that weren't even, you know, not even close to being of this quality, even, you know, even a try matching what was on the existing building. So that's the way to go. As for missing the permit, I guess that was on our end. Probably not a good excuse. It was during COVID. We were shorthanded. We got a lot of voicemails. We got a lot. Everything was hard back then, trying to make things work. So we kind of went along with this, and pretty much, even though we were supposed to be able to get they almost a year passed, and they were having numerous issues. They have patients and elderly people in there. There's moldy walls, all this stuff going on. So the color green wasn't available. They picked green originally because we were doing our best to try to match. We were trying to match this roof the best we could. So CertainTeed or whatever it was, they weren't really doing exactly what they said. They say it'd be available, and then it wasn't available, and then they say it'd be available, and then everything kept pushing off and pushing off and pushing off. So finally, we were in communication with them, and they said, okay, so they're making Grand Manor, but Sherwood Forest not available with Colonial Slate. So they decided, okay, let's move forward. Let's move forward with this color. So that's pretty much where we were. We got Colonial Slate ordered, and in the midst of it, kind of lost sight, getting approval for everything going on, and then we got to stop. So during all that time, we researched getting tile, and not only was it not economically feasible for them, which I can't really speak for their finances other based on what they told me, but they're a nonprofit and they pretty much help elderly people and women that are abused and on drugs, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but the difference in price back then wasn't attainable and wasn't available. There was at least a year wait. Even think about maybe getting tile for that roof. So moving forward a little bit, we ordered the colonial slate, and then we got the stop work order. And that's kind of where we are today. We did research, possibly going back with Ludovici, a tile that it's not the exact same. They could actually make the exact same tile, but the figure is astronomical. Even moving down a notch to a tile that's not exactly the same, but a little closer, it is roughly at least 3 times the amount of proposal that they have now. The CertainTeed was willing to honor pre-COVID pricing because of some of the setbacks based on that. So, the only option I know on our end, on my end, is that come September 1st, the shingle is actually available in green, or is green, or maybe, I mean, I'm sure it won't be free, but maybe we could switch it out to the green, and it would make it look closer to the original color. But as for tile wise, I've spoken depth with Ludovici. They are 8-12 months out on a tile that's still not going to match the tile that's on the roof that the customer can't afford anyway, whether roof's leaking. So that's kind of where we're at on it. I really did my best to look at any other options. There is no synthetic options that look like a tile. They're either shake or they're slate, and they're still astronomical. So from my point, I can't help what my customer can afford. I just really tried based on what we saw in the neighborhood. I would think this shingle, not only here, in other places, there's numerous examples where architects will spec this because it's a real high-end shingle. It mimics tile. It lasts forever. It's classy. I even seen it on some of the photos and some of the previous cases we were watching. So that is where I am at. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer.
Anybody else here to speak for your appeal?
I have a question for the man who just spoke.
Okay.
Just to clarify, so is the argument then that the Archdiocese is declaring financial hardship on this matter?
Based on what I know,
pardon me?
Not only that was material availability based on the urgency of their roof leaking when this contract was signed. So when this all happened, I mean, people didn't answer their phones. You couldn't buy, no matter how hard you try, you couldn't buy material. You couldn't make stuff happen. So not only was it price, it was material availability based on the pandemic.
And to clarify, nothing's been installed yet, or you did install this roof?
No, sir. We've removed about 20 squares of the roof, and then we got a stop work order.
Got it.
In which case we have been carefully monitoring it and felted it 3 times and ice and water shield it. We go twice a week to make sure nothing's wrong with it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Further questions for the appellant?
Yeah, so I guess you didn't know that you needed to get CRO review to replace the roof in this historic district?
I don't want to totally say that. I think I didn't know for sure. I think it was talked about with my staff. It was called, and they called the city, and just throughout the period of time, it got overlooked. That's the most fair statement I have. I would not have purposely done that. I have a permit with the city. I know it's a huge building. I know somebody would have saw it, so it's not like I was purposely trying to hide it. It was just an oversight during a tough time.
Thank you.
Further questions for the appellant? Chris, is there anything else to your appeal? Any other documents you want to introduce or other speakers you want to have?
There are some people from the Archdiocese, if they want to speak in regards to financials. I'm unsure.
Bob, who do we have?
Well, Bill Reichmuth is here from the Archdiocese, and so is Vinny Canzaro with the building. So they're both here if they wish to speak.
Okay. I'll go ahead and speak. My name is Bill Reichmuth, and I'm with Catholic Charities, not technically with the Archdiocese, although we're all under the auspices of the Archdiocese. I just will say that
before you begin to testify, is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, absolutely.
Proceed.
So, you know, as our contractor has stated, that the project was tough. I think most all of us on the call probably have experienced supply shortages and just inability of getting people to do projects. And so all of that is very much a big struggle. We run 3 small nonprofit entities that care for the poor and indigent people that are abused. And these are all, they're wholly owned and separate entities, and they're all nonprofits, and they're all struggling day to day just to make, ends meet. And so we would spread the cost of this roof over the 3 agencies that occupy the building. And it's been, a struggle just to make that happen, frankly. So the costs that we did, it took us some time to put this project. We've been putting it off for a few years just to get to this point. And then with the pandemic, it puts us in a really tough financial position to do that. So I know Vinny is our on-site facilities person at that building and could probably talk more about those, but that's our position. Thank you.
Just to clarify, who's the building's owner?
The owner of the building is under the name of Catholic Charities.
Okay.
So can I ask a question of the staff? Because the packet says it's Archdiocese of St. Louis Real Estate Corp.
Yeah, that's what's in GEO. That's what in our records show is as the Archdiocese is the owner.
Well, my CFO had informed me that the building belongs to Catholic Charities. Now there is oftentimes I will say there's some confusion over some of the properties that are in the Archdiocese portfolio. So the Archdiocese does have their own facilities and real estate group. And I've only been with Catholic Charities for 2 years. And so I know since I've been here, it's been something that the Catholic Charities entity has been managing and dealing with. So I can't speak to how it's technically, what's on the deed and that.
So we usually define ownership by what's on the deed.
The assessor does say this is the Archdiocese of St. Louis Real Estate Corporation. That is the assessor's record.
Okay.
And what's the address they have for that? Bob?
At 20 Archbishop May Drive in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, I think in our organizational structure, I think all of our entities roll up through the Archdiocese. So, that makes sense to me then.
So can I ask another question? So were you aware it's in a historic district and that you needed to go through CRO review for replacing a roof?
I was not.
Okay.
Is there any other testimony the appellant wishes to enter for the record? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Who's here to speak? Bob?
I'm going to clarify one point really quick. When I was on site that day, Vinny Canizero, who I believe is also here, did acknowledge that in the past they have gotten permits through our office for other work. So either on site, somebody did know that permits were required. We had reviewed some handrails there a few years back. So someone on site did know that there was permitting required. Okay. So we have Jim Dwyer is here to speak on behalf of the Neighborhood Association.
Hi, Mr. Dwyer.
Good evening.
Thank you for your patience. Tell us your name. Tell us you're going to tell us the truth.
My name is James Dwyer, and I swear to tell the truth.
Proceed, sir.
Well, I'm going to amend what I had originally intended to say because based on the testimony that I've just heard, some of what I have written and what has been submitted through the Cultural Resources Office to the Preservation Board is apparently not valid or not entirely on point. And so I'm going to ad lib and say, first of all—
Wait, Mr. Dwyer, is this the first time in all the years we've been talking that you have ever ad libbed?
I don't recall.
Good thing you're under oath. Proceed.
Yes, right. So I'm going to try to keep it simple as usual. First of all, as far as the neighborhood organization is concerned, we are entirely sympathetic to the activities that go on and the importance of those activities in this structure. I want to echo Bob Bettis's sentiments about awareness of the need to obtain a permit. I have been involved in issues not under the current administration necessarily, but having to do with this property in prior years where a new driveway was introduced from Maryland Avenue, which required the removal of a section of an historic wall. And there was a lengthy proceeding regarding that, as well as other things on this property. So there should have been an awareness, number one. Number two, the standards are very clear. They're unequivocal. They require, as Bob said, that repair be investigated, and if repair is not possible, that the original material be replaced in kind. So fast forward, given that there is an issue regarding whether the historic materials can be replicated, what I am going to suggest is that the appeal be denied and that the matter be remanded to the Cultural Resources Office for negotiation leading to a successful resolution that, in my view, would include color. I'm not familiar with the material that has been proposed. I know that it is non-compliant in the strictest sense, but maybe there is reason to consider it as acceptable, and I would defer to Cultural Resources on that matter. But I believe that the green shade of the existing roof is fundamental to the success of this project. And I would, so you've got my motion, or not my motion, but my suggestion, my recommendation, that it be remanded to Cultural Resources for further examination of what is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. Bob, is anybody else signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, this concludes testimony in this appeal. Commissioner Robinson, have you got a motion?
I move that the Preservation Board uphold staff's denial.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I would think that if this vote goes the way it goes in favor of Commissioner Robinson, that then the applicant would have a chance to maybe try to find a green substitute per Mr. Dwyer's suggestion, which is a great one.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Hamaker, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. Do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, yes or no?
Yes.
The chair also abstains on this motion. It counts 4 yeses, 1 abstention. The appeal is denied.
Sir, may I make one quick question? We want to make sure that
who's speaking?
I'm sorry, Bob Bettis with staff. I will tell the truth. We want to clarify something in terms of the role of staff moving forward and what authority we have to approve something that may go against the code. So the discussion previously was that you could work with it. Yeah, you delegated to us. Is that what you're intending to do, is delegate this back to our office to?
No, that was not the motion.
Just want to verify, just want to clarify we're on the same page.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the next appeal?
We're going to change teammates here, and coming up next is the roof on Westminster. 1 second.
Bob, I'm just going to do it from here.
All right, I'll move you along.
Okay, this is 4349 Westminster Place. I'm Andrea Gagan with Cultural Resources Office, and I swear to tell the truth. I need to enter into the record ordinance, the enabling ordinance 64689 is amended by 64925. The Center West End Historic District Ordinance 56768 is amended by 69423. The agenda, the PowerPoint, the application, and my presentation. As I said, this is 4349 Westminster Place. The applicant, the owner, has applied to remove the existing slate roof and install a DaVinci composite roofing on a single family home. The existing slate is a green color, and the proposed DaVinci replacement will be a slate gray. The copper ridges on the dormers and the metal ridge on the main roof would be eliminated. And the Cultural Resources Office cannot approve proposed roofing as it does not replicate the original roofing material, which is slate. The owner has appealed and the matter is now being brought before the board. As I said, the roof does not comply. The proposed roofing is not the original green slate and copper, and the metal roof ridges. And you can see those on the dormers and on the top ridge of the roof. Those would be eliminated. And these significant changes would alter the historic character of the house, as the roof is one of its most prominent features. And you can go ahead. And this is just another shot, just showing the color of the roof as it is existing. Go ahead. And this is the proposed color of the DaVinci roofing. And then this is just some context across the street and looking down the street, and some more context on either side of 4349 Westminster. The material of the proposed roofing is not slate. It has not been shown to be unavailable. The significant difference in the color of proposed roofing would alter the historic character of the building. The contract we received does not mention replicating the copper ridge caps or dormer on the dormers or the metal ridge cap on the main roof. There's been no comment from the alderman, but the Center West End Planning and Development Committee has submitted a letter, which I believe you received, and I assume Jim will go into more detail on that. They are opposed to using the DaVinci in place of the slate.
Based on these preliminary findings, the Cultural Resource Office recommends that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial. The proposed roofing does not comply with the Central West End Certified Local Historic District standards. Any questions?
Questions for staff? Okay, is the appellant present?
Yes, I am.
Okay, proceed, sir, telling us who you are and affirm that your testimony is going to be the truth.
And Bob, Bob, there are some slides that I'm going to.
Should I proceed?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Anthony Davis. I'm the owner at 4349 Westminster Place. I've owned the house roughly 2 years now and am systematically going through and restoring the house. I'm very much a purist. I like to restore all the original wood and the hardware and things like that. Just seems like this roof is 126 years old. It's original to the house. It is at the end of its useful life. I have researched replacement options. Number one, I disagree that the color is green. If you look at the slides, it was hard to determine what the color of the roof is. But we've done our research. We researched other historical residences, what the National Historic Preservation Board recommends. And we came up with this Da Vinci because it closely mimics the existing slate tile. That was our reason for this choice. We have the full support of our neighborhood, the Fullerton Westminster Place Association. I've collected signatures. I think they may be attached there to this slide. And we're hoping for approval to get this done.
Does that conclude your testimony?
Yes, it does.
Questions for the appellant from commissioners? Okay, who's here to speak?
My name is Tim Messner, the contractor for the owner of the home.
Wait, I'm sorry, are you part of this appeal?
Yes, I'm the contractor for the owner of the home.
Okay, where's the owner again?
This is the owner.
Okay, here's the question. Is your appeal concluded?
Yes, my appeal is concluded.
Okay, Bob, who's here to speak?
We have Jim Dwyer here to speak on the item. And that would be the only person beyond the applicant and his contractor.
Mr. Dwyer?
Good evening. You want to swear me in again?
You're under oath till midnight.
I see. Good. Thank you. All right. I will proceed. I have written a letter which presumably will be entered into the record, but I want to read from that letter. This is, I think, an important matter that deserves thorough consideration. So my letter reads as follows. Chairman Callow and members of the board, the CWE Historic District standards are unequivocal regarding the requirements governing replacement of slate roofs, especially where visible from the street, as is the case in this instance. Please refer to the attached exhibit in which relevant excerpts from the standards are presented in cut and paste form. And I'm going to ad lib once again and refer to that addendum that is presented as part of our presentation today. That addendum is a cut and paste version that recites excerpts from 5 different provisions of the Central West End Historic District standards, all of which are consonant in their requirements about the manner in which the priorities governing roof replacement, repair first, replacement only if repair is not possible, and then if that is the case, that the replacement must be with original materials of like kind. That concept is expressed throughout the Historic District standards. So back to my letter. The standards state clearly that repair is preferable to replacement unless conditions are sufficiently deteriorated that repair is determined to be impractical, in which case original or historic roof materials shall, emphasis on the shall, be used wherever the roof is visible from the street. The applicant or his contractor has indicated that repair is impractical. Presuming that is confirmed, and to my knowledge, there has not been confirmation of that, but if there were, the material proposed to replace the existing slate is non-compliant and should not be permitted. In addition to the composition of the proposed substitute material, color is particularly important in this instance. As has been discussed previously, it is essential to maintaining the integrity of the CWE Historic District standards that they be applied uniformly and consistently. It is worth noting that slate roofs on at least 7 structures located in Fullerton's Westminster Place, and those are at the following addresses: 4360, 4376, 4397, 4426, 4434, 4466, and 4470 have either been restored or replaced with new slate in recent years, thereby adhering to the standards and maintaining the exceptional architectural quality of those 2 blocks. That commitment and investment on the part of those property owners illustrates a level of stewardship that deserves respect and reinforcement by adhering to the Historic District standards. As indicated in the CRO presentation today, the applicant has claimed, actually this is not accurate. I'm going to skip that sentence because I didn't hear it from the presentation. But the notion is that if cost were presented as a justification for using a substitute material, that should be denied. If cost were to become an accepted basis for exemption from the requirements of the standards would quickly be rendered irrelevant. Accordingly, the CWE Planning and Development Committee recommends that the CRO staff denial be upheld and that the applicant be advised to investigate the practicality of selective repair, or alternatively be required to replace all street visible roof surfaces with slate in a color matching the original material. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bob, anybody else?
No, sir, that's all.
Okay. Commissioners, that concludes testimony on this appeal. Commissioner Killeen, have you got a motion?
Yes, sir, I do. I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial as the roofing does not comply with the Central West End Local Historic District standards.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Aye.
Motion made and seconded twice. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Commissioners, I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Hamaker, do you vote yes or no? Thank you. Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Chair abstains on this motion, counting 4 yeses and 1 abstention. The appeal is denied. Commissioners, next up is agenda item K, which is a discussion I would like to have about the possibility of designated 4389 Lindell Boulevard as a city landmark. 4389 has been much in the news lately, and I was surprised to learn that it is not, in fact, already a city landmark. Reading from the city's website, city landmarks are sites, buildings, or structures recognized as important to the city of St. Louis. They must also have, and there are several bullets, have significant value to the history of the architecture of the city, the state, or the nation, or be a site of a significant historic event, or be the work of a master who has greatly influenced the development of the city, state, or nation, or contain innovative elements of design, details, materials, or craftsmanship, or represent an established visual feature of a neighborhood, community, or the city, or yield or be likely to yield important prehistoric or historic archaeological artifacts, or be a work of art in a public space. City landmarks become landmarks by petition, and the petition can be initiated by one of several entities: the property owner, the alderman of the ward where the property is located, or the CRO at the request of the Preservation Board. The question before us is, should the Preservation Board ask the CRO to do that? There are people signed up to speak on this subject, but first I'll ask commissioners, should we ask Preservation Board to do that or not? Commissioner Hamaker first. Should we? Shouldn't we? What do you think? And what time is it there?
Almost 2 in the morning.
You are so good.
I'm doing it. Honestly, I don't feel like I have enough information, so I would need more information to really decide.
Commissioner Richardson?
I think I'm in the same boat, and I guess I would ask, has this been run by, have we gotten the opinion of CRO staff on their thoughts on whether they think it should be a landmark?
We'll ask them. Commissioner Killeen?
So you're talking about this item K here on Papin Street?
The second
item
K. 4389 Lindell.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said K and I've gone to K.
There's 2 Ks.
My apologies. We had 2 Ks.
Okay, number 1. Got it.
So this is K2.
I'll try to climb it. Okay, so I'm going to pass.
Commissioner Robinson, an opinion yet? Okay. Bob, who's here to speak? Meg, who's here to speak?
Cynthia Goody.
Cynthia Goody. Gowdy.
Hi, thank you so much for letting us on. I'm Cynthia Gowdy. I am the chair of the Rosati Kane Forever steering committee. And that group is a committee that is running alongside of the school to create a new independent school called Rosati Kane Academy at 4389 Lindell. I'm so thankful for letting me come on here. I've learned a lot through this entire meeting. So thank you for that. We got wind that this was going to be on the agenda, so we just thought that we would come on and tell you a little bit about us and why we think it should be considered for a landmark. But I wanted to make sure that was okay in the space.
It is.
Great. So obviously we sit in a very historical, significant part of the Central West End. Immediately surrounding us are historical landmarks. Obviously, the cathedral to the left, the Chase Park Plaza right down the road, the Art Museum a little bit farther down the road. There's DeSmet Hall the other direction, and the College Church as well. We are a school that was started by 2 orders of sisters, actually. It was the Rosati School and the Kane School, and we combined to be Rosati Kane with the CSJs and the SSNDs. We are the first school that had 2 orders of working nuns come together. We are also deeply rooted in social justice, as we are the first school to integrate in the city of St. Louis. We are the first, we have a graduate who was the first woman Supreme Court Justice. We have a graduate who hosts the biggest viral African-American community websites called Blavity. We also have prominent alums who go out in the community and change the world. And so to think that there was going to be no Rosati Kane and there were going to be no Rosati Kane graduates, we think that, and we know that having no Rosati Kane graduates leaves a very large hole in the social justice space. In terms of our building, it was the architect. I believe I've been on this call so long that I've now gone to dinner, so I no longer have my notes in front of me, but I believe it's Henry Hess, if I remember my notes, who obviously is historically significant in himself and who he studied under. I believe who he studied under was I can't remember the architect's name, but they did several of the St. Louis public library buildings as well. We are just where we are, our architecture, our building, our commitment to serving the city of St. Louis, it's just checks every single one of those criteria for what it takes to be a historical landmark. So we're so unbelievably proud that we've operated in that building, and pending the Archbishop's blessing is what we've asked for. We will continue to operate in that building. And we're hoping to continue our historical presence and for your consideration to be a historical landmark.
Bob, who else?
We don't have anyone else signed up to speak.
Is there anybody else here who wants to speak? Okay, commissioners, if in fact we asked the staff to draft a petition, the petition would have to be approved by the Planning Commission. It would then have to go to the Board of Aldermen and be approved by the Board of Aldermen. This is a very preliminary step. Do we want to proceed any further? Do we want to stop here? Do we want to think about it, or what?
I think we should proceed with this. I think, one of the things that makes a city landmark is the importance of an institution, so it's not just the architecture or the history, it's also being an institution that's, serving the citizenry of the city. And so I think, they've made a compelling case there. And I think we should start the process at least to look at whether it would qualify as a city landmark.
I agree.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes, I agree.
Commissioner Hamaker?
Me too.
Okay. Meg, are you here?
I am.
Okay. The Preservation Board would like you to proceed with the petition.
Understood.
Thank you very much. Agenda item L.
Is there only one L?
Good question. What do you want to do, Meg?
The chair and I had discussed the dates of the upcoming November and December board meetings. Should we choose to stick with the fourth Monday of the month, that would put the November board meeting on November 28th, which would be the Monday right after Thanksgiving, and put the December board meeting on the 26th, the day after Christmas. One option would be to move the November meeting up to the 21st, which would not give us a lot of time. It would be a little bit of a crunch to get prepared for that. Another option might be to move it to December 5th, so to have the November meeting in December on the 5th.
Is there a way to have a November and December meeting combined?
If that's what the board prefers.
What date would that be?
Could be whatever date the Preservation Board wanted.
What date would be convenient for you?
I will note that we may have some things that could be on deadline in terms of appeals. So we might not be able to arrange for a November and December board meeting. And I saw our attorney nod, I think, in agreement. So perhaps we could schedule the November meeting for December 5th and the December meeting for January 2nd, which would be obviously the Monday after New Year's Day.
Commissioners, what do you think?
Works for me.
Meg, I think we're closed. We may be closed that day.
Which day?
2nd.
Oh, good. Can you check that? Apologies. I thought we would have the Friday off, but I'm not sure now, given that the holiday falls on a weekend.
And we do not have to meet on Mondays.
True.
Yeah, I don't like December 2nd or January 2nd.
Okay. Okay, we don't have confirmation on that at this moment, but it seems possible that the City Hall would be closed on January 2nd. So
let's try splitting these. When should we have our November meeting, commissioners?
December 5th sounds great.
Everybody okay with that? Meg, is that enough of a resolution of this agenda item? Because I don't think we know yet about December.
Yes, that is. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, is there any other business for the good of the order?
It's Manchester for 2 meetings or the next.
Okay, then. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Without objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Steph. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine, especially.